Hi, these are the top 10 films of 1976. When I say top 10, I mean my personal favourite films of 1976. Cheers. In at number 10, All the President's Men. This is one of the great newspaper movies. Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman star as Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, two journalists working for the Washington Post who are investigating the Watergate scandal. The joy here is in the details of the investigation, the endless phone calls, and the mountains of papers to sift through. Both men are very good in it, but Redford in particular stands out as Woodward. Completely real, showing both his eagerness to find the truth as well as the fear of what may happen. In at number 9, the outlaw Josie Wales. Clint Eastwood directs and stars in this revenge-driven western. He's effortlessly cool in it. It's a beautiful looking film with brutal moments of violence. The film also stars the great Chief Dan George and Eastwood's partner Sondra Locke. The couple starred in many films together, and Eastwood would go on to play a major role in her biography, The Good, the Bad and the Very Ugly, where Locke describes their turbulent relationship in detail, including Eastwood's fury if someone touched his mayonnaise. Fascinating stuff. In at number 8, Carrie. The first adaptation of a Stephen King novel is one of the best. Brian De Palma directs with his usual visual flair, and Sissy Spacek is perfect as the bullied schoolgirl with telekinetic powers. Piper Laurie is fantastic as Carrie's mental religious mother.
Eve was weak.
No!
Eve was weak.
No!
Eve was weak. Say it.
No,
Helen.
Mama!
Say it.
It also features one of the earliest appearances of John Travolta. We even get a scene where he beats a pig to death. The film builds brilliantly to the massacre at the prom and ends with one of the great jump scares. It's a bloody good film. In at number 7, Bugsy Malone. Alan Parker's gangster film has children and lots of pie and cake, telling a prohibition crime tale, but with children playing all the characters, and the Tommy guns being replaced with guns that fire cream and pie. Shouldn't work, but it does, as a great kids musical. It's a fun film to watch when you're young, but two things have kept this being a treat as one gets older. Jodie Foster's amazing, very adult performance as Tallulah, and Paul Williams' outstanding songs.
Tomorrow.
My name is Tallulah.
So you wanna be a boxer?
Part of me would love it if every gangster film had the dead rising, covered in blood and singing that song. The only thing that hasn't aged well is Scott Baio, as he's grown up to be a right bastard. In at number 6, The Man Who Fell to Earth. Nicholas Roeg's excellent trippy sci-fi film. David Bowie couldn't be more well cast as an alien who arrives on Earth and gets addicted to watching TV. The fact he's not really an actor means his odd, slightly out-of-it performance works perfectly. He's mesmerising and otherworldly. Roeg's editing and visuals are hypnotic, and the music throughout is excellent. To balance Bowie's cold performance is the marvellous Candy Clark as the most human of humans. An alcoholic, vulnerable mess. She is so good in it, and the moment she appears and falls for the alien, you become even more invested in the film. The second half of the movie is a lot like Roeg's performance, a claustrophobic hallucinatory nightmare. It's not quite as riveting as the first half, but the imagery and the performances carry you through this brilliantly imaginative sci-fi picture. In at number 5, The Tenant, the last of Polanski's amazing apartment trilogy. With Repulsion, we had Catherine Deneuve going mad in a flat in London. In Rosemary's Baby, Mia Farrow gets knocked up by Satan in an apartment building in New York. And here we have Polanski himself going bonkers in an apartment in Paris. I really like Polanski as an actor. He has great comic timing and a vulnerability about him. There's a great scene where he finds a tooth in the wall and then doesn't know what to do with it, so just puts it back. He's completely relatable as a very weak man. The film has a Kafka-esque feeling and is darkly comic. The supporting cast, including Isabella Adjani, Melvin Douglas and Shelley Winters, are all fantastic. It's a claustrophobic, nightmarish film, but under all of this is a lovely score by Philip Sade. This is a great way to end one of the brilliant unofficial trilogies in cinema. In at number 4, Harlan County USA. Barbara Koppel directs one of the most powerful documentary films of the 1970s. Covering the Brookside Strike of 1973, we follow the miners of a small town's struggle against the Duke Power Company. The struggle went on for years, and Koppel was right there with her crew to document it. We follow the miners and their wives as they struggle for basic rights. We see how miners are dying with black lung disease, how dangerous the mines themselves are, and how people have died in explosive accidents. It's a shocking film, and it even covers how corrupt the unions can be. The head of the union, halfway through the film, has a man running up against him, assassinated along with the man's wife and daughter. As the events unfold, it feels like you're watching fiction, as it's also dangerous, and the tension increases with guns being brought out and an escalation of violence that leads to bloodshed and death. It's an incredibly powerful film, despite at the end there isn't much of a resolution. It shows a statistic that Duke Power Company's profits increased by 170% in a year, and the miners were offered a 4% pay increase, even though the cost of living had gone up by 7%. The massive rich and poor divide still exists, and this is a really great film about one town's fight against this imbalance.
Hey, number 3, Rocky. Hey, we're going to bastard.
When you can understand what Sylvester Stallone is saying, this is a really great film. I think this film is so high up on this list, as it's one of the only films that makes me want to exercise. It's Hollywood fiction at its best. The underdog story of Sylvester Stallone's boxer nearly making it to the big time. It's not quite set in the real world, but has so many downbeat moments that makes it surprisingly moving. Stallone wrote the film and stars in it, and it is truly his best performance, as he doesn't mind coming across as dim. He's so bloody stupid, he's even mocked by children.
Hey, Rocky.
Yo.
Screw you, creepo.
What he gains in the movie is a don't give up attitude, imparted to him by his trainer, played by the Penguin himself, Burgess Meredith. The relationships between the characters are surprisingly deep. Rocky's love interest is a socially awkward character who's a little bit odd. Talia Shire plays Adrian! And a messy drunk brother, played by Burt Young, is another great tragic figure in this franchise. The fact that Rocky loses the fight makes this good movie a great movie. In fact, the Rocky and Creed films that are the best are the ones where they lose. Even though the franchise would jump the shark, going so far as to have robot butlers and Rocky seemingly end the Cold War, the franchise kept going back to its dark roots. Rocky loses all his money, he loses the love of his life, but he keeps going. The franchise and this film is about a person who is beaten repeatedly and keeps falling again and again and again, but he gets up anyway. It's about the struggle of life and how it's anything but easy. It also has a knockout score by Bill Conti. In at number 2, Network. Sidney Lumet's masterpiece is as relevant today as it was in 1976. The film is about the media, about manipulation, and about the fickle masses. Peter Finch gives one of the great film performances as the mentally unbalanced news anchor. After he's fired, he threatens to kill himself live on air. Ratings go up as people are fascinated by watching this unbalanced man, and he goes from a suicidal mentalist to an adored preacher. His performance is riveting.
Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Faye Dunaway is perfectly cast as the young, ambitious head of programming. She'll do anything to get ratings, including getting a terrorist organisation to send in videos of their crimes in order to develop a weekly show on them. Robert Duvall plays her boss, and he is fantastic as the ruthless company man who literally suggests killing Peter Finch when they lose control of him. Ned Beatty is brilliant as the rich owner of the company, and he has a fantastic speech about how money rules the world and nothing else matters.
The world is a business, Mr. Beale.
It's such a compelling film and is larger than life, but at the same time shows the world for what it is. If anything, it feels more relevant today than ever. For the last year and a bit, every day I've wanted to open the window and scream,
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm mad as hell. I'm mad as hell.
And in at number 1, Taxi Driver. Where do I begin? Martin Scorsese's classic about a taxi driver in New York slowly losing it is a masterpiece. The genius of the film is how Scorsese makes you see the world through Travis Bickle's eyes. He's unhinged and racist, and still the film makes you see New York from his perspective. You lose your mind with him, and even kind of understand his mad actions. This is storytelling at its best. Taking someone who is fundamentally unlikable and putting the audience in their shoes. New York comes across as a nightmarish cesspool. Ordinary people, represented by Sybil Shepherd and Albert Brooks, seem like unwelcoming snobs. The politicians aren't on your side, and the whole world is against you. Robert De Niro gives one of his best performances, and one of the best performances of the 70s. He's totally unpredictable, relatable, and frightening all at the same time. His character is full of contradictions. He calls his body a temple and works out, but at the same time he eats crap and even self-harms. He's a man who wants to reach out, but at the same time he hates the people he's reaching out to. It's all done so subtly as well. The supporting cast is astonishing, with Shepherd, Brooks, Jodie Foster, Peter Boyle and Harvey Keitel all knocking it out of the park. Paul Schrader's script is biting, even having Bickle seen as a hero after the bloodshed of the shootout at the end. In order to get an R rating, the scenes in the violent climax were desaturated, meaning the blood is less bright. This is in the film's favour, as it doesn't have that bright red paint look like a lot of blood from the period. The ending is so violent and shocking and still packs a punch. There is no glamour in the violence. There are inventive choices throughout the film. You never know what the characters or indeed the camera will do next. It's quite remarkable. The film also features the last score by Bernard Herrmann, and it's wonderfully beautiful, which as a juxtaposition with the horrid imagery and bleak tone works wonders. This is an incredible film, a look at madness, a look at the world, and a look at a lone man who's capable of doing terrible things. When the film speeds up in the last shot, you know it's only a matter of time before this ticking time bomb of a man goes off again. This is one of the best films of the 70s and of all time. Right, so counting down the top 10. In at number 10, All the President's Men. In at number 9, The Outlaw Josie Wales. In at number 8, Carrie. In at number 7, Bugsy Malone. In at number 6, The Man Who Fell to Earth. In at number 5, The Tenant. In at number 4, Harlan County USA. In at number 3, Rocky. In number 2, Network. And in at number 1, Taxi Driver. Well, those are my top 10 films of 1976. What are your top 10 films of 1976? Cheers.